Hematology, study of blood. Blood is considered a type of connective tissue, mainly because it comes in contact with pretty much every other cell in your body. Blood is a transport method. It transports things around. If you want to get something from one area of your body to another, you want to do it very, very quickly, the blood is the way to do it. It goes to pretty much every cell in the body, and it does so very, very quickly. The purpose of blood is to transport things like oxygen. Oxygen, of course, is transported inside of the red blood cells. It is transported attached to the hemoglobin molecule inside of the red blood cells. Blood also transports things like glucose. Glucose, which is going to keep those engines running. Remember the little machinery in our cells, it's going to make energy. It's going to need some glucose and a little bit of oxygen. Blood also carries things like hormones, those things released from the endocrine tissues, released into the blood, and then comes in contact with receptors on the target organ, the target gland, somewhere else in the body. Blood also transports waste products. Waste products of metabolism, things like uric acid or lactic acid, carbon dioxide, transported to some place to get rid of it. The fluid portion of blood is called plasma. About 55% of your blood is made up of plasma, a straw-colored liquid. About 90% of plasma is made up of water, which means if your body's short of water, something we call dehydration, it's going to affect your blood. It's going to affect the volume of your blood and therefore affect your blood pressure. If you have less volume of blood, will your pressure be high or low? It will be low. Less volume equals less pressure. And we talked about this before. What does your heart do to make up for that? It's going to pump faster, right? Heart rate's going to increase, make up the difference. Hematopoiesis is the process by which all blood cells are made. You saw that on that handout, that hematopoietic pluripotential stem cell at the very top, which then can become any blood cell in our body that needs to be made, including red blood cells. The red blood cell starts out as a hematopoietic pluripotential stem cell, then it becomes an erythroblast, then a normoblast, then a reticulocyte, and just before it is released, loses its last of its nucleus, becomes a mature erythrocyte. Erythro meaning red, cyto meaning cell. So, if that red blood cell no longer has a nucleus, what's that tell us? No DNA, right? No chromosomes, no DNA, which means that cell doesn't have the capability to repair itself. So its lifespan is somewhat limited. You get about 120 days. Red blood cells are the erythrocytes. These are the most numerous of the blood cells. If we take a drop of blood and look at it under a microscope, we will see a whole slide full of red blood cells and just one or two of those white blood cells. Remember we said a neutrophil would probably be present. These are more so abundant. Maybe a lymphocyte in a normal blood smear. You remember that? Which part? Erythrocyte. Erythro-red cytocell, erythrocyte. It's sort of a biconcave shape. Looking at it from the side, looks something like this. Very flexible. Has to be flexible. It has to be flexible because it has to go through single file, and they sort of have to squeeze through. It's not a clean fit. So the red blood cell has to be flexible. And we'll see why that's important later when we talk about some of these conditions. All right. Down to that middle of that page, that paragraph, erythrocytes contain hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is a red iron-containing molecule. This is how I can tell you that blood is red. You hear people say that blood is blue until it hits oxygen. That's not true. Blood is red. If it is venous blood, if it is deoxygenated, then it tends to be a purplish red color, but it's still red. The reason why I can tell you that it's red is because the iron molecule is red. So what we end up with this hemoglobin molecule with these two chains, alpha chains and beta chains. Each of these molecules, or each of these chains, contains a molecule of iron. That molecule of iron makes that entire hemoglobin molecule look red. It's the iron that makes the hemoglobin molecule look red. There's so much hemoglobin packed inside of a red blood cell that molecule now makes the whole blood cell look red. And then there is so many red blood cells packed into blood, it makes blood look red. That's how we come up with the red color. It all comes down to this molecule right here, this molecule of iron. That molecule of iron makes the hemoglobin molecule look red. There's so much hemoglobin inside of a red blood cell, the whole red blood cell looks red. So many red blood cells packed in the blood looks red. So it's red. Don't listen to them. Listen to me. All right. Continuing through this. Hemoglobin is composed of 4 globins or chains of proteins that are twisted together to form a globe-shaped molecule. Each chain contains a heme molecule. Each heme molecule contains an atom of iron that gives the hemoglobin its red color. One hemoglobin can carry 4 oxygen molecules. Oxygen, 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 oxygen. One hemoglobin can carry 4 oxygen molecules. In us, in other species, they can carry more oxygen. Things like a whale or a dolphin. Which is why people say, well, they can hold their breath underwater longer. Well, that's because each of these molecules can carry more oxygen in our skin. So it doesn't have to come back and replenish that molecule as often as we would. All right. Once we start loading up this molecule with oxygen, we get the first one on. The second one snaps onto place even faster. In other words, the affinity for oxygen, the way this molecule likes oxygen, increases the more oxygen it gets. So it gets that first oxygen molecule, the second one attaches a lot easier, that third one attaches even easier. By the time this fourth one attaches, it attaches with about 300 times the affinity that this first one did. So it's a lot more attractive to that molecule, which means that that molecule really wants to be completely saturated with oxygen once it gets one of them on. That's where it really wants to be. That's the state it wants to be in. There are 3 primary types of hemoglobin in adults. Hemoglobin A, which is 2 alpha chains, 2 beta chains. Hemoglobin A2, which has 2 alpha chains and 2 delta chains. and fetal hemoglobin, which has 2 alpha chains and 2 gamma chains. But again, in adults, we mostly carry hemoglobin A. About 95% is hemoglobin A. Okay. So, stop for just a second. All right. Erythropoietin. Erythropoietin is a hormone. Now, this isn't one of the ones that we studied in the endocrine system. You'll recall when we talked about the endocrine system, I said that there are other organs in our body that has endocrine functions, not just the primary organs we discussed. Even the heart has an endocrine function, the liver has endocrine functions. In this case, the kidneys have an endocrine function. The kidneys release something called erythropoietin when it is found, when the kidneys have found that the blood pressure is low, indicating blood loss. The kidneys say, well, if I'm losing blood, that means I'm losing red blood cells, so we're going to have to get more red blood cells. So it sends a message to the bone marrow. This message is erythropoietin that says, we're running out of red blood cells, so we need some more. Take the ones that you already made, started to make, and mature them faster. Get them to that reticulocyte and erythrocyte phases faster. And get started making some more, because we're running out. Now again, normally the body makes a lot of red blood cells, make about 1 million of them per second, which is a lot. That'll wear you out. But if the body finds that it's losing blood, that means a lot of those red blood cells are just being lost, in which case that 1 million per second isn't going to be enough. We need to increase the production. Lifespan of red blood cell is about 120 days. Lifespan of red blood cells about 120 days. A mature red blood cell has no nucleus, therefore it has no DNA. So when that red blood cell starts to break down, the hemoglobin that is inside of it starts to break down. And if you look on that sheet that I've given you, on the back side of it, it shows you that the hemoglobin is broken down into the heme and the globins. It's either on the back side or the second sheet, depending upon which pin I'm going to see. The globins are broken down into their proteins. The heme is broken down into one of our favorite components. You remember our friend Billy Rubin? Now, once he is been broken out of the Billy Rubin stage, Billy Rubin has to go where? To the liver. It has to go to the liver to get conjugated. If it is unconjugated, what happens to that Billy Rubin? Collects in the skin. Conjunctiva causes the sclera and the skin to appear what color? Yellow. This is what we call jaundice, also known as icterus, right? Good. So, now you can imagine if somebody gets tissue damage, for instance, punched in the eye. The initial thing that's going to happen there, the initial process is going to be what? What's the first thing that's going to happen to that injured tissue? Inflammation, right? We're going to see that 911, that distress call. It's going to send out those cytokines. We're going to have everybody rushing to the scene, right? That's going to create a whole bunch of solutes in a semi-liquid environment. So if inflammation occurs, what comes with inflammation? Edema, swelling. We're going to have fluid going to the area and red blood cells, right? And they're all going to get trapped in that area. That's going to make that area swell up, and it's going to appear red. Why is it going to appear red? All those red blood cells that are right there. Now those red blood cells that are now stuck there are going to break down, and over a couple of days, that hemoglobin is going to break down, and that bilirubin is going to collect right there. And what color is that black eye going to turn in a couple of kind of a yellowish color, right? You ever wonder why it would turn a yellowish color? That's all that bilirubin that's unconjugated stuck there. Kind of makes a little bit of sense, right?